Hello and welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 162 for Friday, September 6th, 2024. This is the one that I'm going to call the one where we start late. We'll explain that in just a second. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantain App. We have with us Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for Plantain App, and today we're going to host a great conversation. This is a time when we get together and talk about Plantain App and the challenges that you might experience with it or the things you're trying to do with it. So please join us, be ready to show and tell. We record all these, we put them on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/PlantainApp, you can find all of the other 160 odd episodes. We run this agenda every week. We always say hello because this is a friendly little campfire. We get around the campfire and anything that you want to talk about or anything that you submitted in advance, we do first. We cover a lot of different things, and then after an hour or so, we go into our afterglow segment where we turn off the recording, just enjoy each other for a few more minutes on a more personal level. So do engage with us. You can submit questions and topics in advance. This QR code will get you there. I'll leave that for just a second in case you want to snap it. But you can also email support@plantainapp.com, and we will, if you have questions and things that you want to talk about here, this says topics, but we've gone to calling them campfire logs. So if you want to throw a log on the fire, that's a great place to do that. And with that, good morning, afternoon, hello.
Happy
Good morning, all.
Friday.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hello, all.
So the one where we start late has its source in Patrick at 10:01 saying, did we cancel Campfire today? And I pulled my head out of whatever it was that I was doing and said, better put this together. I've said before, we do very little preparation. This is just a rolling conversation, but now we've gone on to doing no preparation. So we're going to get into this. I'll go advance through the slides. Some of them are probably going to be left over from last time, but here we go. We are currently, I'll just mention we're in release 1.26, which happened more than 2.5 months ago now. And I didn't update the adoption, so I have no idea. We could even check in on that if we get real bored. But we jump right to first call. Maybe you can help me salvage this episode. Hey, Don.
Yeah.
Hey
Literally raising your hand. I love it.
Literally, yes, exactly. Let the camera run and do it the old-fashioned way, which is odd because that's really not all that old-fashioned when you're doing video on your computer. I remember Dick Tracy watches, so that's how I know old-fashioned.
Well, this is no question. This is the Jetsons right here.
Exactly. Good analogy. The two things. First of all, you had the 1.26 slides up. So I just want to interject that I received an email from you folks saying, hey, you're putting 1.26 on something after version 9.11.2 of DNN. So be careful. So thank you for that. And yes, the way I'm handling this one, first of all, there was a number of problems with 9.11.2 in File Manager that we just can't get around. It's not File Manager, Resource Manager now that they're calling it, and I just can't get around them. So I need to have something better. So what I'm doing is I've got two versions of the website up and running. It's part of a development that we're doing, and I mentioned it last time, I think, about having an app that does that links in with the website. And so I need APIs for that app. And so I'm using the latest 126 on that site, along with version 9.13.4. I think that's what DNN is currently at. So everything's running fine. And I have two versions. One is the live version out there, and everything's working great. It's not really doing much right now. The Plantain app is not doing much. All the other pieces are working just fine, and everything is playing together nicely. But the place that I'm testing things out is a test version of the same website. And if everything seems to work and there's no problems, and I kind of run through generic paces of all of the different pieces, and it's all working good on the test side, then I go and do the same thing, add the same
Mhm.
new API, add the new actions, things like that on the live site. And so I'm very cautious about that. And so it's working.
Well, and I appreciate you've reported before that it is working, and I'll just explain for anybody who's catching up that we are tested through, I think it's 9.11.2, and so that's what our documentation says. And yet we know that the DNN world has advanced and we're trying to catch up to that. And it will be supported in our next version 1.27, officially supported. That'll be the version. But yeah, we've gone to sending out notifications just to let you know if we perceive that you may be outside of what our guidelines say, just to help you know and think about and maybe raise a question. Um, but we're still not perfect with that. That notification is a work in progress. But yeah, glad that you got one and it applies, and yet you know that you know what you're doing, and so you're good.
Oh, so on that note of knowing what I'm doing, that's my next question. Um, Part of this API, I do a SQL call, which gives a nice, just flat series of rows of results, and we work through it where you have to use you do a list from SQL and then create a JSON object and then spit the JSON out as the reply to the API, which is all great. And I did all of that and I sent it to the developer and they said, you know what, could you rearrange things in the JSON? And that just exploded my head because no, I don't know how to do that. So the question is, point me in the right direction for either list manipulation or JSON manipulation or token manipulation or object manipulation, because you use all those terms and I'm not sure what's what. And I need to figure out how to rearrange the information, not just sort it, but
Hmm. Hmm.
change the there's two different kinds of rows. There's a type field that says this is going to be a drop down that we're going to ask the client. There's a bunch of options for if they're going to an event that includes different options. What kind of member are you? What kind of dinner do you want? Things like that. And some of them are fields like what's your name? And some of them are drop downs like do you want the chicken or fish? And so with that, what the developer wants is he wants an array that says, okay, here is the one thing, and it's a field, just a simple text field. Here's the next thing, and here is the array of options. I don't know how to manipulate that. So I'm wondering, I don't know
Hmm.
if you can give me the answer today. If it's that easy, that would be wonderful. And if it's not, just point me in the right direction, please.
Okay. I might be able to give you some, uh, and Patrick, as always, will think and provide a better answer after I've done first try. Um, so making sure I understand where you're trying to go, is there any concern with the order of the properties within a single array element, or is it simply uh, that there's different elements in there and you want?
For each of the rows that I get back from the current SQL statement, there are several fields. There is the grouping, which in the case of it being a series of fields like first name, last name, email address, each one of those rows will have a group of attendee info. So it'll be, the same name. So that's one way of grouping things. And also a field in the row is sort order. and the sort order will extend through all of the groups and names. So I would have my first name, last name, email, and then there's a sort order for group name, food selection, and then name of fish and name of chicken and name of veal, and that has a sort order too. So that would be the way that I don't necessarily have to put them in the right order to give it to them. But I guess I could sort it once I have the list of, chicken, veal,
Mm.
or fish.
Um, all right, I think I'm going to take the tack of pointing you in the right direction, and it's kind of hard to for me to wrap my head around it without actually the JSON or the elements in question. But yeah, let's see what we can do. Um, so we can learn a lot by creating a test workflow. That's how I often approach things, and so this is just going to be give a name here and get started. So there's some actions having to do if you're pulling, I'm sorry, are you pulling data from SQL,
Yes.
different kinds of data from SQL? So, and you're doing that through a SQL query or,
Yep. SQL query.
okay. So, uh, and so you're doing a run SQL query that results in JSON.
What I do is a create list from SQL followed
Hmm.
by a create JSON object.
Okay, let's do that then. Create list from SQL. So let's say I'm going to create a user list from SQL. And so the SQL is going to be gives us, and so we're just going to get everything. It's going to be the user list, and we save that, and then, and I'm sorry, create user list from create list from SQL is going to give us a list. And my goodness, this kind of cuts off here, but we'll actually, I'm going to save this and I'm going to switch to the new view. Um, by the way, we offer this new view, old view. We're trying to get to where the new UI is the UI. But you have to, in order to use this button, you really want to save first because otherwise you'll lose your work. Anyway, I'm going to go to the new UI. It's going to look very similar, but let's see. So this action goes a list, and you're going to get a count out of it, and it's going to hold the entries that were created. So if we want to just test that it's working, we can create a debug output, and we'll take the user list count as what's being displayed. And so we can just quickly test to see that it's returning something. So we get 44 items. Okay. So at least we're that far. And now the next step, you said you're using a which action?
Create JSON object.
Right. And so
Yeah, user list, and list. I did not put brackets.
and right, and you're using it as a list, and we're going to output the JSON. So now for my debug, I'm going to switch over to displaying the JSON, save and test, run, and so we get a user list with subordinate items. Okay.
Yep.
And they're great. So now you want to, and then we might have, you have different kinds of lists that you're trying to provide all back to the same, in the same response, right?
Yes.
All right.
I can imagine if you added to the SQL some type, and then show me an array of users of this type, an array of users of that type. I'm not sure what that would be. Roles maybe, or some.
So I'm just going to try and make this as easy as possible for me. I'm going to say the top three. So I'm going to simplify getting this list out, and so it's only going to give us 3 items now. And so 1, 2, 3, and then to make it real easy again for me, I'm going to use this same thing, and we'll get the other end, the top 3 users. So I'm going to import that same action back in. I exported it, I imported it. I'm going to put it here on the list. And so this is going to be user list high is what I'm going to create, and it's going to be ordered by user ID descending. So it's going to get 3 from this is the first one was the lowest 3. This is going to be the highest 3, and so we get user list high. It's just a different list. It doesn't matter for you. It might be what they ordered or whatever, but just a different list. And
Okay.
so now we have 2 lists going on, and we could create a JSON. I actually, all right, let's reuse this. I'm gonna export this, and I've got it in the wrong place, and so I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the right place by exporting it, deleting it, and importing it back. So I get the same thing again, but I wanted to create both of my lists. So this is user list and user list high that we're creating. So now in the JSON, we can say user list high, and let's give this different names just so we can illustrate what's what. This is the name within the JSON. This is the token, the list that's going into it, and we're still going to do a list. So we're doing 2 different things in one JSON, and save and test. So now we have 2 different lists, and it's going to be helpful to see it in see the JSON nicely formatted. So I'm going to put it in my editor here and reformat it. So now we have the user list and the high list. Doesn't matter what the data is, but 2 different types of content coming from different lists, but added together in the same output JSON. I think that's what you were asking, being able to create many different things and put them together in one output.
That's good. It's really more of the information in user list. There's a field in user list that where I want to rearrange them. I don't. I normally can do this, but I don't see the jump from what you just did to where I'm going.
You have a second level of array that you're trying to.
Yeah. It's so like I said, if for instance, if there was some way of grouping the users, then what he wants is if they're this kind of user, um, give me the information this way. If it's this other kind of user, give me the information that way. I see that you can combine, and it's just, add list after list after list. So I
Hmm.
guess I guess the issue is, can I do some kind of a get the information and then build lists from the resulting information, and then I can use the create JSON to string them all together. I guess that would be the loop I would create. But I don't, then if that's the case, now I've got multiple lists that I'm building, and I have no idea how many lists I'm going to end up generating, because I don't know how many options this particular event has. Um, so I so I need to
Hmm.
know uh, how do I create lists, n number of lists, when I don't know how many n is, and I don't know what the names are. Is there an
So
array counter?
I'm gonna do two things. First of all, I'm gonna start with this is possible. I think the result that you're looking for is probably an array within an array, and
Yes,
it's possible.
that
And,
is definitely it.
and the other thing I'm gonna do is now gonna kick out to Patrick and see if you have thoughts on this before I dig any deeper.
No, not other than um, I wonder if it could be handled within the SQL query itself. But it's hard. It's hard from our end. We're not seeing the data and the format that he's looking for. That's a little challenging.
Exactly.
Um, but I think Dale, you're probably going to do a loop. I'm guessing. I don't know, but that's
Well, unless I'm happy to take the time and explore this a little bit. So maybe we create something closer to your scenario as data. So we'll create. So you have people and um, food choices. Is that?
There's a bunch of variables that I'm handed, and I don't know how many I'm going to get out of the SQL, because in any given event, there's always a few that are the regulars, and then sometimes there's additions. So I don't know what my options are going to be. So there's always first name, last name, email address. We know that. And so the way that and I'm using a module called Razor Cart, well-known Smith Cart product, and it's a e-commerce system.
Mhm.
And in that e-commerce system, and a product is built. The product is a particular event. And the product has variables like you'd think of a product, an e-commerce system where you sell t-shirts. The variables will be size and color. These variables are what dish are you requesting? What kind of member are you? That'll tell what the price is going to be. And several others, plus some other fields, like if you, for a t-shirt, if you wanted to embroider a name on it and you just type in what the name is, that would be a text field. That's another option. So I've got these various options that I'm getting. And for each option in the table, I get a variant group name, which is used to group the options together. If the group is the food, then the group is a dropdown. So the type in the table is a dropdown. If the group is a series of text fields like first name, last name, et cetera, then the group is called text, or so that's the data that I have. And I was just giving the guy, my developer, the rows that says the variable name is the attendee info, the variable group is attendee info, the variable name is first name, Then the next row says the variable group is attendee info, and the variable name is last name. And then the next group is food selection, and the variable name is fish. And the next one is food selection, and the variable name is chicken. And that latter two need to be turned into a drop down on the little form that's being built. The first two need to be text fields. And so he wants the output in JSON to be variable name, and then an array of values, the first name option, the second name option. And in the case of the dropdown, he wants variable group and then an array of the options. That's the, and I realize I probably, now that I thought about it, I should have used that QR code that you have at the beginning and sent you a simplified version of the database and what the list looks like. And then you could have thought about it a little bit and had some data, but I didn't think of that.
Well, that's all right. Maybe we can get close here. So let's push on. I've got two things here. We have I've made some attendees, so let's do me. And we have attendee options, and so this would be the equivalent of your group name. So this is my field selection, and this data could be better, but I mean, it could be better organized if we were thinking about it, but and let's say another thing is level, and how do you spell peon?
Huh?
And then of course we should do Patrick as well. And for Patrick in the options, we'll say that for field selection, what would you like, Patrick?
Steak.
I'm sorry?
Steak.
Love it. And you will also do your, what is your member level?
Is there anything lower than peon? Minion. How about minion?
Just so long as they don't confuse that with your order. And yeah, and I'm going to throw in the odd option. Yes, that's actually an A. So we have a little bit of asymmetrical information. We've got two common properties and an odd property, an odd option, and but we got two people. So now let's see about some SQL to pull this stuff together. If we go to SQL console, and you this is the preview of the new SQL console. So we have attendees, and so we create a select.
You don't have the update.
I don't have the update for mine. So so we want all the attendees, and then I think we're going to want all of the so this gives us attendees. That's cool. The other thing, just as we're taking a look, we have attendee options, and so this is the other thing. And so we have attendee one and the option and all the different options that are there. And so I'm with you, Patrick. I think that there's a nice SQL query that would group all these things together and produce that as an interesting output. Before I go any farther, is there anybody else who's just been chomping on the bit wanting to comment on this process and better options before I dig in? Okay. The output, let's see, for each attendee, we want to do options. So I'm working on the question low-code versus SQL. The most efficient is probably going to be SQL. So let's see if we can get it to happen. I am going to see if AI will help us come up with this answer. So I'm outputting JSON in both of these cases, and I'm going to open them up. I don't want that editor. So we've got our two things that the attendees and the options, and I'm copying that off. And so what happens if we feed this problem to AI? Actually, I'm going to get the real table names. So we have app attendee and app attendee option. So let's see how well it did. First of all, we can run this interactively. which it did. Attendee option, it picked up the wrong field names, so we need to clean this up a little bit. We don't, you know, suppose, name and well, close, but it's starting to give us sub options, but it didn't relate the to the person. So with a little bit more work, we could do this. So maybe we can say I'll provide you the query that I did, Don, and say I think you can get there with SQL, right? You're gonna we have attendees, and in this case for Patrick, I mean, we didn't group it right. These selections should have been up here with this, but and maybe we can improve that. But you're going to get a subarray with all the options, whatever options are present, and I think that's going to give your developer the information that he's going to need.
Got it. All right.
So I'm
Well, thank you
punting
for
a
that.
little bit, but yeah, I think this is the direction. I think you could also do this through Low-Code, but I think it would be less efficient and ultimately harder to well, less efficient is the main thing. If you can get it done with a fancy SQL query, it's going to be very efficient and get you where you want to go.
Yes, I'm going to go talk with ChatGPT and see if I can ask those same parameters similar to what you've got there, and then see what other outputs. The second piece of it is the determining based in the example that you created, you have one kind of output, attendees and what options they chose. And you know that that's the structure, so your SQL is going to build the list. The problem that I have is I've got two different kinds of output. In one case, when it's a dropdown, I need to put the information looking this way, and if it's a text field, I need to make it look this way in the same JSON. So it's that's the difference of the two. I'll ask that same question.
But I think there's a possibility of approaching that a couple different ways. One would be maybe you generate if there's two different possibilities of the different types that you select out the data for one type and produce a JSON output, and then select out the data for the other type, produce a JSON output, and then put that all into one content. But yeah, there's a lot of if you're trying to hit a very specific output to make your developer happy, you might might take some work.
Well, what you just said, I think, is the magic bullet for me. I didn't think of that, but I could do one query that just pulls all of the drop downs out, and another query that pulls all of the text fields out. And those are the two separate lists that I need to have, and then just string the two together. The sort order field he already is going to deal with, so we'll let him deal with that. So the information will definitely be out of order. Right now it's in order because that's how the database just happened to store it. But it'll be out of order, but the sort order field will pull it all back together again. So that, and then tying the two pieces together with the create JSON object, and I just put both lists in there, would do the trick. So great. Thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Interesting problem. Anybody else have a comment or have a different first call? I have a topic to go on to if nobody else does, but I don't want to monopolize. We have, I had to do something, a low code thing, and I think it's a good contribution to Campfire, so I'm gonna I wanted to add it, but um, as we've already established, I wasn't very prepared today. So maybe it'd be worthwhile in Campfire just to go about the act of adding a contribution, and I can add this thing real time, and then so it kills two birds with one stone. I had to do a, let me output it here. I'm going to export from another system. I did a workflow that turns JSON into an HTML table. And there's probably better ways to do this. I don't know if somebody thinks that I wasted my time in producing this, let me know. So I have this workflow from another system, and now I want to document it here on Campfire. So and it's simply a JavaScript that turns JSON into a table. So let's first explore, what does this thing do? And again, I guess I'll take advantage of my OpenAI account. So, oops, and it's I always forget to trigger happy on clicking things here. All right, stop. Very nice. So we've got some sample data, and I guess I should do a better job of copying and pasting. So I just get the JSON. So here it is. And so here's what this workflow does. If I go to the input, I'm gonna run this thing, save and test. I'm gonna put my JSON in the JSON. What I get back is a table. And if I display the table, one way to do that is in the, I'm just cheating here a little bit, but if you put HTML in and say render it as HTML, here we see it rendered as HTML. Is that useful for anybody? Or am I wasting your time?
Makes sense to me that I can see the the potential for having that
Right.
need.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Dale.
Yep.
So now we've got the workflow. We see that it's working. So now let's put it into something. So I'm going to go to in Campfire, we'll create a page for it. And I've done some pages like this in the past. So let's see what we got. Sure. That I've done before, and so I'm just going to, when I do it, I typically make a copy of something. Well, here we go. Let's just build it. So we need a new, I put my contributions in page, add page from 9. I'm just going to do it from scratch, not copy that page. The annoying HTML element that I don't need. So now I just have to illustrate this by way of an action form. Here's how it works. So make a form, manage it. Started with a overview here. Here, details in later. So that's going to give us a starting spot. So now we'll just edit that some more and add an example. So input JSON as a name, then we'll have another large text. Actually, we'll make this be, yeah, we'll do a large text, which is going to be the output. And then let's say we'll also do another one that is a static text, just to be able to display it as HTML. HTML display. So we've got 3 different fields going on where the plan is that we'll take in some input and create those outputs. So the button is create table. We'll add an action that is JSON to table. So we're going to execute our workflow. The input is going to be input JSON. The output is going to be the HTML display, and I'm going to do another create update token to create from the other thing that I wanted, which was the HTML output. I'll just create that from the HTML display. So we let's document a little bit here. Getting the HTML display from input JSON. We do this. Finally, we add it all off with an Ajax so that this form doesn't clear. And let's see if it works. So we got provided some JSON. Should have that here on my, there it is. We got our cars still. So we can convert from HTML to a table. And of course, this table could now be used in a create PDF or whatever kind of option that you want to display that information in a tabular form. A couple of cleanup tasks here. We want top labels. We want to lay these out. We're going to have let's just put them all side by side here.
Cool.
And just to make it easy to use, we will, on our initial value, we'll put that same JSON so it comes up ready to use in case anybody wants to. If when they visit this page, all you'll have to do is hit create table. So then beyond that, it's just pointing people to, here's the source code of that workflow. You can just incorporate the workflow into whatever you're doing. So to kind of close the loop on why this came to be, we now have internally we have infrastructure alerts like disks full or any other kind of something bad is happening within our infrastructure, and we want to get onto it before it becomes critical. So we have alerts that need to be go out in an email once a day. They're just kind of annoying things that need to happen, and so I'm running a SQL query that returns all of these things, all of the alerts in a JSON table. I'm using that workflow to create a HTML table, and then I'm throwing the HTML table into an email. So with very little work, I mean, I don't really care too much about the formatting of the table. It's all about displaying the information. And so just going from, I'm able to run a SQL query that returns JSON and format that into an email, good to go. So problem solved very quickly. You can do other things with it and obviously tinker with it. So Don has now virtually raised his hand, literally.
Yes. Two questions. The first one, the input JSON that's on the screen right now starts with an array. Array symbol, the bracket says, okay, the following is going to be an array. The app developer for my project says that they want a variable name at the beginning. So curly brackets, event options, colon, and then an array. So if the manipulation that I'm doing gives me something that looks like yours, how do I add a name to that object, that array?
I think that you can do that with that same create JSON object that you were working with earlier. I think there's if, for example, if you well, I don't mind adding that temporarily to this contribution. So let's add another output here. That's going to be another large text that I'm just going to call temp. So in our same, I'm going to create a button for it. Doesn't matter what we call it. We're going to delete it here in just a second, but that same create JSON object, you can take the input JSON. In this case, I mean, we already know we've got JSON content, right? So we can say this is ours, and we're going to input JSON and format it as a array. I think this will do it. I always struggle with the syntax here a little bit.
You need an output array. Sorry, output token.
I'm just expecting things to happen by magic. Yeah, we need to send this to 10.
Oh, simple. Well, that's great.
Yeah, knowing what those different options do within the create JSON object, and sometimes you just have to experiment with them a little bit, but what we're doing is we're saying we're creating an object called a property called cars, and we're formatting this JSON as a JSON array, and it knows to do it. You might have to play a little bit with. I mean, I was able to answer your question. This thing will do different things, and knowing which one to pick sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge.
Right. Very neat.
So that'll be on the recording. I'm going to clean this thing up since it's really unrelated. So I'll add some little details here, and then if you were making a contribution, you would go to the contributions page and say new, and this is we're doing JSON to HTML table. So, and the link is this. Generic or utility thing. So now it's out there for anybody to use. I'll add a few more details when we get off this today. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap this somewhat impromptu version? I had Campfire games going. We only had one contribution, Mark, but it was a very good one, and so maybe we'll cover those in next week. But a reminder that just if there's any inline help text that's bothering you, you can put it into help me, what do we call these things? Feature request on the community.plantonaut.com, and you're in the running then for the grand prize of a keychain for helping us find things that need to be improved. So, tough competition. It's 1-0 so far. All right. Well, thanks for joining me on this Friday. We'll hang around for a few more minutes. We'll talk about what we just saw, or gee, anything else.